Is the issue behind the government response a lack of senior women in the administration? Well, Camilla Tominey, who is the associate editor of the Daily Telegraph, believes so. She wrote a column today saying the average This Morning viewer would have been able to tell the PM that saying we can invite cleaners into our homes but not relatives sounds about as rational as expecting 5- and 6-year-olds to socially distance. A woman might have had the balls to point this out, but unfortunately, female ministers have been conspicuous by their absence from the all-male COVID-19 subcommittee that is making the decisions. She adds, Mr. Johnson might be minded to heed the words of his predecessor, Margaret Thatcher, when she said any woman who understands the problems of running a home will be nearer to understanding the problems of running a country. So is that true? Dawn Butler is Labour's Shadow Secretary of State for Women and Equalities. She joins me now. Dawn, of course, former Shadow Secretary of State for Women and Equalities. Dawn, do you think that Camilla Tominey has a point? If there were more women in senior positions, would it have made a difference? Or is this just sexist mumbo jumbo?
Hi, good evening. Well, I think if you take on board the mixed and confusing messages that we have had from government, everybody's, of the same opinion that it could have been clearer. And you think, well, what changes could be made? And one of the changes that could be made and should be made is that there needs to be different decision makers around the table, and there needs to be different voices, and there needs to be people with different lived experiences. And women are just one of those groups that should be there too. I mean, if you look at all the countries around the world who have handled the crisis well, like New Zealand, for instance, all of the countries where they have female prime ministers, they've handled this crisis so much better.
But Australia has a right-wing male leader, Scott Morrison, and Australia is doing just as well as New Zealand. Is this not just a media narrative?
No, because there are some leaders who are men who have done a good job, but all of the leaders who are women who have done a good job, none of them has done a bad job. So it shows you that there is a different thought.
But then Priti Patel, our Home Secretary, is someone that Labour seems to love to criticise. I mean, just because she's a woman, would you say she's doing a good job?
Oh no, I don't criticise people unless they absolutely deserve it.
But she's a senior woman.
Priti Patel's had a number of issues, and the Home Office has just acted appallingly in so many different areas.
Okay, but does that not just disprove your point, though, Dawn?
Quite rightly, I've criticised and other people have criticised too.
I know, but does that not disprove your point, you see? Because there's a senior woman in the government who I might say is doing a great job, but you say, no, she's a woman, she's doing a terrible job. So actually, is this not just political?
I know Priti Patel's not making the decision. So Boris Johnson's making the decision with Dominic Cummings. Priti Patel's not the one making the decision. So I wouldn't criticise her for all of the confusing messages coming out of government, because I don't think that has been her responsibility.
I mean, some people would also say, Dawn, of course, that this is quite an irony coming from a Labour MP, given your party has just again elected a white old bloke to lead your party when you had all of these incredible female candidates, including yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if Keir's going to appreciate you calling him old, but...
well, oldish. Old compared to you.
But, yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't disagree. I think it would have been great to have, a female leader. We've got a female deputy in Angela, but I think it would have been great. Yeah, of course it's disappointing, but it doesn't disprove the theory. It's just another disappointment.
Now, Dawn, you have caused a lot of controversy today.
Who, me?
Yes. So there was this moment on the brilliant Jeremy Vine show. Let's have a listen, and I'll see if you stand by the comments. This is what you had to say to Jeremy Vine about Boris Johnson's handling of coronavirus.
I think the Prime Minister's actions are pretty disgraceful. And yes, he is sending people out to catch the virus. When he's sending people to go to work with mixed messaging, that is irresponsible. And if you want to be disgusted at somebody, be disgusted at the Prime Minister.
Sending people out to catch the virus. That's not what the Prime Minister's doing, is it? He's saying we need to get back to work in a responsible manner, practicing social distancing. He doesn't want people to contract COVID-19. You surely can't be accusing him of willfully putting British people's lives at risk, can you?
I mean, that would be so outrageous, wouldn't it, for anybody to advocate a herd immunity in a country where there's a deadly virus going around.
Well, he insists he never did that.
Nobody would do that. I mean, this is what I find quite fascinating, that, you know, everybody kind of talking about it now. When the Prime Minister said, oh, this virus, we just need to take it on the chin, did people go crazy? Did they say, oh, my God, this is an outrageous way for us to look at this situation and to save lives? People were silent.
But Dawn, you're taking that interview out of context.
No, I'm not taking the interview out.
You are, because I know the exact interview you're referring to. You're referring to him on This Morning. He then went on to say, but that's not what we're going to do.
Oh, excuse me. They had more than one conference where they talked about herd immunity. I mean, I hadn't even thought that was a thing. I mean, okay, with the flu, that's how that is coped with. With something as deadly as this, no other country had that approach apart from this country.
Well, I just read through
on Sunday. The Prime Minister on Sunday made an announcement that confused a lot of people, that resulted in the Monday with our buses being packed, with our tube trains being packed. It was irresponsible. And then after he made a statement, he then tried to retrospectively explain what that statement meant. Dominic Raab then did the airways, and he started saying, oh, no, we didn't mean you to go back to work on Monday. We meant to go back to work on Wednesday.
Have you read, because I just want to clarify what you're saying. Have you read the document, the 50-page document about the plan to rebuild the economy that was released on Monday?
No, I haven't read that document.
Because in that document, the government says categorically that there was never a herd immunity strategy, and they go into quite a lot of detail on it. So are you accusing the Prime Minister and the government of lying about that, just to be clear?
Yes.
So you think the government secretly had a herd immunity strategy?
What I would like to see is all of the modelling and all of the modelling through SAGE and all of the documentation that this government currently isn't supplying or providing. I would like to see all of that placed in the library so that everybody can have a read of all of the modelling. They may have changed their minds, which is fine. They can change their minds. It's a fast-moving situation. But please don't tell me. We have been trying and pushing this government for information and the best way to handle this. Look, WHO has said, if we want to come out of lockdown, you have to have a really good testing strategy. Where is our testing strategy? It is not good enough. The government has five.
No, they've been too slow on testing. Dawn, and I agree with you on that. They've been too slow on testing. But what I'm just quite shocked by is that you genuinely believe the Prime Minister of this country, who nearly died himself from COVID-19, you are saying he wants to send out his fellow citizens to work in order to get COVID-19. Are you listening to how extreme that sounds?
But when the Prime Minister was talking about herd immunity, were you outraged by that?
Well, Patrick Vallance spoke about it, the chief scientific advisor. And then very, very quickly, Dawn, the government did a total U-turn and said, no, what he's saying is wrong. And when Boris Johnson went on This Morning, and I know the interview that you're quoting from, he said that was one option and we put it off the table. So, Dawn, I don't believe that there ever was a herd immunity strategy.
But were you outraged by that? So this lack of outrage in regards to some of the statements that's coming from this government shocks me. You know, I have constituents who are sick and dying at an alarming rate. And this government can do much better, and they're not. So why are people like you not holding them to
Well,
account?
no. Excuse me. I am holding a lot of people to account about a lot of things, Dawn. And if you were listening earlier, you will know. And if you're listening yesterday, you will know my absolute shock, horror, and disgust about the case of Belly Munjinga, this incredible transport worker who was spat at without any PPE in March. And this man claimed he had COVID-19, and tragically, Belly contracted the disease just 5 days later and ended up dying. I am disgusted by that. I think it's despicable. Why was there not a police investigation? Why was she not wearing PPE? I get the outrage, but I just think you've gone one step too far by suggesting that Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, wants people to contract COVID-19. I can't get my head around that, Dawn.
I didn't say. What I said was that he's sending people out there unprotected. So if you do that, you are literally sending people out there.
So we stay in our homes for 4 years until a vaccine is developed, because that's the only alternative.
Well, no. If you take Spain, for example, they've put infrastructure in place. So people are using the underground, and they're handing out masks to them. So they're making provisions and putting in infrastructure. You know, the Prime Minister made announcements to open schools, okay, without any infrastructure in those schools to protect the teachers. And so what's going to happen in a few weeks' time or a few months' time when teachers start contracting the virus? What are you going to say then? Are you going to be surprised
So
then?
you think schools should stay closed?
I think there needs to be the infrastructure in place. It can't be done in this short period of time. Teachers themselves have said, the head teachers have said, the unions have said, they need at least 6 weeks to be able to prepare the schools. You know, the DfE have said they don't need PPE. Of course teachers need PPE if they're going to be teaching a classroom of even if it's 10 children.
Well, look, I'm looking very closely at the studies to do with schools, because my dad is a headmaster in New Zealand. He has gone back to school, social distancing, because obviously New Zealand is a bit ahead of us in terms of flattening the curve. And I've also looked at this case out of Iceland, where researchers found no evidence in a single case. They actually tracked a tenth of the population of Iceland. No evidence in a single case of a child passing the disease onto an adult.
Oh, it's too early, number one, and all of the scientists have said that it's too early, number one. Number two, it's different in different countries. Number three, it is known that children can pass on the virus. That is a fact, that is known. But number four, if you look at all of those countries that you've mentioned, they have such a huge testing program.
Yes,
Huge.
I know. We're behind on testing, and I concede that, Dawn. I've absolutely appreciated the debate. Thank you so much for being here. That is Dawn Butler, Labour MP, former Shadow Secretary of State for Women and Equalities.